government ought to get out of the way and let the system work, let the free market work. We have a 270-year supply of coal right now in the state of Alabama. We could burn coal for the next 270 years, and probably more than that, but that's what they're estimating at this point. And yet, we're allowing folks from other parts of the country to come in and try to mandate that we do away with coal. Well, you know what happens then. It drives up the cost for the consumers in the state of Alabama. And we don't want that. We want to be able to burn the coal. We want to be able to use the least expensive fuel possible to produce the electricity. If that's natural gas, if that's, of course, hydro is very inexpensive, but as you know, with hydro, we're using all that we have right now in the state of Alabama, and it just, there's not enough of it. But whether or not it's nuclear, natural gas, or hydro, or coal, whatever it might be for the fuel, I think we ought to use the least expensive fuel so that the prices can stay down in Alabama. Because as you know, if we can keep our utility prices and our electric prices down in the state of Alabama, we can recruit new industry to the state, and we can also grow jobs with the current folks that are creating jobs in the state of Alabama.
Yeah, you know, I often hear my liberal friends say that we as conservatives are anti-green energy or anti-renewable energy, when in reality, what I hear you saying and what I believe is we just want to let the market work. That if it actually gets to the point that solar and wind and whatever the heck else is cheaper than doing it with coal or natural gas or whatever it may be, then the market will naturally move in that direction. But it's not right for the government to put additional regulations on coal and natural gas or whatever the fossil fuel industry of choice may be to push them down while simultaneously subsidizing green energy with taxpayer dollars to prop them up. That is manipulation of the market, and I'm not sure anything could be more anti-free market than that.
You know, Cliff, that's what's very interesting to me. We have to remember that when the government gives a subsidy to make something equalized, like right now, if you would like to use solar or wind, the only way that it compares in price to using natural gas or coal to produce electricity, the only way it can compete is with a subsidy. Well, that's yours and my money that's producing that subsidy. The government's giving our money to a company to produce solar or wind so that it's an unfair playing field and they can be on an equal footing with the folks that are burning the coal or the natural gas. And so I think it is wrong. That is the government picking winners and losers. It's the government saying this is a better situation than another one. But the other thing is we've got to watch out as a country is right now what makes us a great country for basically for jobs and for industry is the fact that we have very reliable power, a very reliable power source in the state and across the country. And that's the same with natural gas when it comes to gas. It's very reliable in this country. But when you start doing away with coal-fired plants at the rate they're doing now or wanting to do in the Obama administration, reliability becomes a real problem. And I know, being a former restaurant owner, if we don't have electricity, we could not cook and we couldn't deliver our meals. And so the reality is businesses don't work without electricity and gas. And so that means jobs are stalled. And so we've got to make sure our grid is reliable. And the only way you can do that right now is by burning coal and by burning natural gas and not by going to these alternative forms that some of the environmentalists are trying to mandate across the country.
We can actually look out to California and see what has happened out there, because that's a state that is not only business owners out there having to endure the federal environmental regulations, but the state, there's so far left out there, the state has actually layered additional environmental regulations on top of them, and at different points for the last decade or so, they've actually had rolling brownouts in California where the government would actually have to say, or the power companies would have to say, okay, for this hour of the day, this segment of the state is not going to have power because the power grid can't sustain all of it, because they wouldn't let them use coal or this stuff. It had to be like all green energy. And this is like a third world country. People saw it was like, this must be a third world country. I'm like, no, it's California. They're having rolling brownouts in California. So we've seen the results of these policies, and I have a theory that I want to get your take on, Twinkle. Manufacturers that have left the Midwest and left the Northeast, they've all come down here to the South. We're right to work. We got a great climate for jobs. We got a great workforce, and our energy rates are low. On top of all those companies moving to the South, those of us down here in the South didn't vote for President Obama. So my theory is that it's really this is targeting the South. He just doesn't care about us because we don't vote for him, and we've already taken so many of their jobs. He's trying to artificially level the playing field to send those jobs back to states where that vote Democrat, but maybe I'm just being conspiratorial here.
You know what? I could not agree with you more. And when I first got to the Public Service Commission, I really thought maybe that was just a conspiracy theory, but now I have seen firsthand what the Obama administration, through basically the telephone and a pen, his signature, has been able to do. And just 10 years ago in the state of Alabama, we were using somewhere in the neighborhood of 60% of our electricity being produced by coal. Today, it's somewhere in the ballpark of 40%. And when you take away the ability to burn one of our most precious natural resources and most abundant natural resources in the state, what you do is you drive up cost, because you're having to turn those coal-fired plants into natural gas-fired plants. First of all, there's a cost there. And then the coal you're continuing to burn, you're having to add so many different environmental components that drive up the cost. In fact, I can tell you, since we regulate Alabama Power has spent already $3 billion and will spend close to $5 billion to comply with all of the different mandates that have federal EPA mandates that have come out of the Obama administration.
It's unbelievable.
That goes to the consumer. So Obama is not concerned with the consumers in Alabama. He's concerned with making his environmental buddies wealthy. And we can see that time and time again when you look at what's going on at the EPA.
Yeah, and that's what they do. You're so spot on this, because they wrap everything they do in this faux outrage that they are to just protect consumers. They want to help the ratepayers out there when in reality, every single policy that they are advocating for would actually have a negative impact on consumers. I also find it ironic that they claim to be the ones that are out there fighting for the poor when everything that they do would disproportionately hurt the poor, because, those folks that got a lot of money don't care if they pay a little bit more on their electricity bill, but the poor, that hits them where it hurts. So, we could go on and on about this, but there's another angle I wanted to talk about with you today. I saw an article in the Montgomery Advertiser that says they're already kind of starting the drumbeat for more taxes, and they need more revenue. We just can't get by with what we got in state government. Obviously, we raised a little bit of taxes this past special session of the legislature. And in contrast to all of that, while all the focus down in Montgomery was on raising taxes to get more revenue, you guys have managed to cut your budget and drastically. I think it's like over 30%. You actually scaled back the staff there. You've done a lot of different things there at the PSC. In my view, to actually govern as conservatives, what has allowed you guys to do that in contrast to so many of the other agencies we see in Montgomery right now?
Well, let me just say, I have been very clear. We do not need more money in Montgomery. We need to be better stewards of the money that's in Montgomery. And so I was very clear during this session, we don't need higher taxes. Let's go in and figure out what is necessary in state government. Cliff, when you look to elect someone, it's always been my feelings that someone cannot tell you how they will vote on every issue that comes before them, because some issues we don't even know they're going to come up over the 4 years that you serve. But what you can do is look at someone and know what is their overall philosophy, what is their philosophy when it comes to governing. And I believe you need a strong, solid, conservative philosophy that guides your daily decisions at the commission or anywhere else you lead, because the natural tendency is for government to expand. And when I got to the PSC, I'll tell you, it was expanding quickly and as I say, lacking a captain. And that's what I've tried to be, is someone who leads by example, but is a fiscal conservative in every decision that is made at the commission. And we have reduced our headcount, our staff, since I got to the commission from 119 employees, and today we have 74 employees. So you can tell there's been a very large difference where somewhere in the neighborhood of 38% of cuts in state employees. And these were done through attrition. In other words, as people left, we retrained and reorganized the building. And we didn't do this by a large firing or anything like that. There are too many rules in state government that govern state employees. And let me just say, while I'm here on your show, we have a great workforce in state government. They do a fantastic job. But many times, state government, like I said, has the tendency to grow and to expand instead of to shrink. And so you have to really work at shrinking. In other words, when someone leaves, you have to look at how can I reorganize and retrain people so that we can get the job done with a smaller staff. And that's what we've done. We've also consolidated our office space. We pay now about $450,000 less annually in our rent. And that's a big number when you look at the fact that that's annually. So over a 4-year term, that's close to $2 million. And these savings really do add up. And in the reverse, when you're spending them, they also start adding up. So it's important to cut. When I got to the commission, we had 59 cars in the building, and today we've got 24. And you might say, now, why do you even have a car? I do not drive a state car. I chose not to take a state car. But we do have some employees that use their cars on a daily basis. Like we do gas pipeline safety around the state. We do railway safety, equipment, and tracks. Those people need a vehicle to do their job on a daily basis. But we don't have people driving to and from work using your money, the state cars,
That's right.
State gas. And I thought that was important to take that away, but I did it by example. I did not take one myself. We've reduced our out-of-state travel by 70%. Obviously, there are some things that are absolutely necessary, like the training of our gas pipeline safety people, like some national meetings to testify before the EPA. Those things are crucial to our state, and we need to do those. But there's a lot of unnecessary travel in our state government, and we eliminated that here at the PSC. But we've continued to do everything we can to cut costs, and we're now somewhere around the I believe this past year we could say we've cut 28% of everything at the PSC when you look at our overall budget. And this next year, we're somewhere in the ballpark of 30% cut.
That's incredible.
But we are, this fiscal year, the 2016 fiscal year, we are sending a record amount of money to the general fund. It's $12.5 million will go to the general fund from the fees we collect, and that is a record number. In fact, each year since 2010, we have decreased our expenses at the commission, and each year I've been here, we have increased the money that we can send to the general fund. Now, some years they have asked us to save it and then send, I guess, double the next year, and we've done it like that. But each year we've had more money to send that we freed up to send to the general fund. And,
Twinkle,
I've encouraged other agencies, let's all work together. Let's do that, because folks in Alabama are, man, times are tough. They're having a hard time making ends meet. Groceries are at an all-time high. We don't need to take more money in Montgomery. We need to leave it in the people's pocket.